Good evening, Danvers. My name is Mark Zuberek, and welcome to the Topics of the Town News, February 12th, 2020. Today we have Matthew Duggan as our co-host, and we have John Toomey as the godfather of Topics of the Town from way back.
Howdy.
Welcome, gentlemen. Today we have a condensed show because we've talked about a lot of things, but our transparency and independent reporting is our motto. The Topics of the Town News reporting is by Danvers reporters for Danvers residents. We always report only the truth, but sometimes with our own opinion included. So we just want to make that very clear. Our focus has been and will continue to be central to Danvers and the Danvers organizations that are in town. The first story that we would like to address is basically the Selectmen's meeting review. The Selectmen had a meeting on February 4th, I believe. And Matthew, if you could go over some of that. You attend most of those meetings.
Yes, I try to. Probably the biggest item on the agenda for the last Selectmen's meeting was a presentation by the Hay Barn Committee. They're led by Mike Mason, and it's kind of a follow-up to a workshop that they had back in November, a community workshop roundtable type of thing. So this will be a warrant article for the May election, or the May town meeting, and still the financing is kind of an issue, I think, for some people. It's a $1 million grant from the state, and then there is the makeup funds would be from the town, $2.5 million. And there's a strategy to kind of calculate what the revenue would be in the first couple of years to kind of offset that debt based on some projections from a consultant that's involved. I've reached out to the Danvers Historical Society to see if they have any concerns with having a function hall
Next to another function hall.
next to the Glen Magna, so that's a major revenue stream for them, and I believe they should be concerned that there may be a conflict there where someone might decide to have their function in the Hay Barn instead of the Glen Magna, but they're definitely two different types of buildings and two different types of atmospheres. I think the Hay Barn Committee is thinking that you could have a kind of a rehearsal dinner in the Hay Barn, and then the actual ceremonies would be next door. So still waiting to hear back from the Historical Society. I think that could be a deciding factor on whether or not town meeting would approve the funding for this. So
Great.
more to come.
Good to hear that they're considering revenue, because you're talking $3 million here between town and state funds. And as a taxpayer, I'm concerned with you spending the money. I happen to be for the historical preservation, but I do want to hear what the revenue income is that they're going to get to try and pay off what it's costing them. I'm not aware of anything in the past, really, that has been going on. And I question this thing. To me, that's a concern. To me, there should be an ongoing effort to have income.
The Hay Barn has been existent there for
Probably 1930.
30 probably, so it's 70, 80, 90 years old. However, all it's been used for was storage and maintenance of equipment that they use at Endicott Park. Endicott Park is a wonderful addition to our community, and it's well preserved. However, we're expanding the functions of the Endicott Park by really rebuilding it's no longer going to be historically significant. It's going to be expanded and improved to provide a function facility. Now, is that what we want at Endicott Park? Like you said, the Glen Magna is a wonderful facility that is historically significant, and it is well used. It's expensive to have a wedding there, because I know that when we looked at wedding functions, that was $3,000 or $4,000 just to get in there without anything else. How are they going to be able to support this hay barn, which will probably cost more than the 3.5 that they're talking about now? Because by it going to the town meeting, what are the selectmen saying about it? Have they said anything significant of what their wishes are? I mean, these are our elected officials. They're supposed to be running this town.
I have to be blunt about this. My house is older than the barn.
Right.
So when you start talking millions of dollars, I get concerned. Because in effect, one way or the other, as a taxpayer, I wind up paying for it. And I think we should, what you're doing, and I give you credit, you're doing something, but you should publicize it more. You should get it across to more people in town. The people I'm hearing from all of a sudden heard some of this, and they're concerned. As soon as you start talking about $2 million, they really get concerned. So broadcast the fact that you are doing something.
This is, again, a continuation of an informed town meeting that has to be aware of what these functions are going to be, how they're going to be handled. Are the selectmen in support of it or not? The selectmen wash their hands off after it leaves their desk because they push it all onto town meeting. Yeah, the town meeting is going to spend the money, but is it the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Well, but I see you're correct, I think, and half of the problem is getting the information across to the town officials. But I think the other half of the problem is getting the information off to the average person in
Right.
town.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So
Go
this
for it.
workshop that was on, I think it was November 9th. So that was well attended by town meeting members and by town hall staff. There were some consultants there. That material is on the website, and it's under Endicott Park. There's a PowerPoint presentation. There's a number of photos. And just wanted to make a point that the barn itself is in need of some work. The clapboards are pulling away, and there's an estimate of $600,000 or $700,000 worth of work just to kind of make it weather tight again, new roof. So even if we don't do this conversion into a kind of a function hall, we still need to do a bit of work to maintain it. Otherwise, it's just going to fall down. So.
Well, that's the information that they should be getting out to the average citizen in town.
Well, hopefully we can help disseminate some of that information.
I mean,
and this is the part of our show that really shows what is going on in town, who's doing what, and where are they going to be spending our tax money.
Well, there's a good example. We could give them airtime,
Right.
but they've got to come to us with something to put on the air. So if you want to do a show, do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour. Bring on what you have on the bond and what you're going to do, and tell the people in town about it.
And I'll just speak for myself. I have been told that Town Hall is afraid of us getting any more information than what we are getting, because they feel like we twist the information to our point of view, and that's not what it's about. It's to educate the average citizen or town meeting member so they can make justified decisions at town meeting.
It's just a different perspective, that's all.
There has to be a give and take on all sides, and what they're afraid of is, hey, you guys are going to beat us up, and we're not going to be able to get this thing across town hall.
We don't want to beat anybody up. We just, the more viewpoints you have on any type of project results in the best kind of finish. So
that's right.
So just one last thing. So if people want to watch the last Selectman show on DCAT, the Hay Barn committee was there. They gave about a 15-minute presentation. So
I will watch it because I was not here at that time. But let's continue. The other piece of the last week of January and the first week in February, we had a deadline for filing abatements for our tax calculations that we have incurred. And the issue, I filed one, and other people have filed several. I have not heard, or I have not been told about the actual number of applications that have been filed, but last year was about 60, and this year it's going to be probably the same or more. But the one thing that they don't tell you is that the commercial and industrial applications are treated separately, differently than the residential ones, because it's a very complex and a negotiated process, which is really totally different from what residents are paying or how they're assessed at the valuation. This is based on the industrial, commercial, and any other functions, is based on income and expenses. Basically, the businesses and the landowners or building owners can deduct all of their expenses for insurance, mortgage, taxes, and maintenance and everything else from the income that they receive, and then they're assessed at the value of what will that property bring in for the landowner and how much.
So they're assessed at the value of income and not on the value of the property.
Correct. And what happens is most of the businesses that operate or have buildings in town go to court. They have an attorney and go right to appraisals that they are calculated on because they pay a large amount of taxes. Residents cannot deduct many of these costs because that's not how it's done. So this has been an unfair treatment of the residents, and hopefully, and I will get the information for the next show, which will be on February 27th, of how many people have applied for an abatement in regard, because there is a legal process that has to be gone through.
Now, if you file for an abatement, and they find out your houses should actually be classified at a higher
Absolutely,
value,
yes.
so your value could go up.
Yes, it
so
can.
You end up paying more.
But what you have to do is you have to evaluate your property or your home related
With
to
the
the
comps.
recent sales on comps.
Yeah.
And also there are I shouldn't say many, but there are several calculations that take place on whether the quality of the building is average, very good, or excellent. Then there are measurements, dimensions. The only dimension that they're really concerned about is the outside dimension of the structure itself,
for
and the
living
number of
space.
stories for square footage.
Yeah.
And land in this town is very expensive. So they have been accustomed to increasing the value of the properties. An average lot in town now is $250,000 to $300,000
More than that
just
house.
for the square footage of land.
More than the value of the house.
Oh, absolutely. So you really have to follow up on that. The sad part about it is that we've been preaching this thing for the last 2 shows, but February 3rd was the deadline to file for the abatement. So hopefully everybody had an opportunity to extend that application to the town assessor.
Doesn't sound like a lot, 60, because there's like, what, 10,000 homes?
10,000
Structures?
structures. And I don't know if they're all homes. There's,
Maybe
I think
like-
there's 7,000 buildings,
Yeah.
and the others are in apartment buildings
Okay.
or,
All right.
facilities where you live. Next story. So that one is over. We're not going to be coming back to that, but I will.
Till next year.
I will be looking at the assessor's office, contacting Steve. He's excellent and he's very approachable. But what we need to do is find out how this abatement process has progressed, whether people are getting reductions in their assessment. The whole thing is not about tax rates. It's about appraisals and assessments of
And
the
a
properties.
fairness.
Our buildings have been increasing. I mean, an average building right now, average home, single-family home, is now worth over $500,000 as an average. I think it's 487 or something like that. But we'll follow that up. The next item is our infamous special town meeting. We have gone through and we have discussed the zoning proposals, the community densities, and the special town meeting, which passed the articles as we've been discussing. The one thing is that, I don't know, everybody tells me that I'm a big mouth and express my views, and I do. The current planning board submitted to the Board of Selectmen and to the Finance Committee and to the town meeting a proposal to rezone the postage stamp of downtown. It's a very small area, and they've subdivided that into 5 separate entities.
Yeah, districts, yeah.
Which is districts. They call them districts, but they're really zones. That's what they were before. The one thing that I have stressed, and I spoke to it at town meeting, is that basically what we have done through this zoning proposal and approval, we have delegated the authority for making sure that everything complies to the zoning that they have proposed to the planning board. It's no longer with the Zoning Board of Appeals. The planning board is an appointed entity that is appointed by the town manager, and it doesn't have any reflection on the elected bodies that we have. The Zoning Board of Appeals is directly appointed by the selectmen.
Yeah.
So there is a link between the population and the Board of Selectmen. Planning board is totally independent, and they will do whatever
The planning department or the
planning
board?
department and the planning board. The planning board is appointed by the town manager, and the planning department is hired by the town manager.
Well, what you're saying, really,
Yes.
is there are 2 factors in this. You have zoning basically the present zoning is written, and that's it. If it says black and blue, that's all you can do, black and blue. But the change that we have now made allows opinion. You have a board of human beings
Right.
who will
Influence
express
that.
their opinion on the interpretation of what the regulation is written.
Right.
So there's a vast difference between doing construction under one and doing it under the other. To me, this is a very, very wide review that you get now. You will be able to go for, ask for, and get a wide variety compared to what you can get under the old law.
Well, I appreciate that, John. The thing is that nobody wanted to hear that. I did my part on trying to get this thing defined and bring it back to committee, let them refine the proposals. Maybe it was too much, but we're going to get back to the Zoning Board of Appeals because every single one of these proposals, if there are any, are going to come back to the planning board. Planning board is going to dictate one thing, and the developer is going to go right back to the Zoning Board of Appeals and say, hey, this is way overboard.
Yeah, but the ZBA has less flexibility now. Today, the ZBA was able to approve plenty of projects where things that were not allowed by right. So, for example, 25 Cherry Street, 44 Maple, 20 Locust, those were in districts, in commercial districts. Residential was not allowed by right. So you go to the ZBA and you can get relief if you can present some type of tangible argument.
And they're going to do that against this
Well,
current
I think
zoning.
they're going to not have as much flexibility. The planning board, if you look at the level of detail in this new bylaw, it's
The level of detail that is being presented in the first segment of the proposal is all architectural, and it feels good, and and we're going to
Those
solve all
guidelines.
the traffic problems. We're not going to solve
but
any traffic
no,
problems.
Yeah, but
traffic's a red herring here. Those are guidelines that are
They
industry
can't do anything
standard.
about traffic. Is right.
Traffic is just a red herring. Traffic is what it is. So, but we can deal with parking, and we can deal with what the streetscape looks like. So, to look down the street and have some consistency with architectural design, I think that's a great
See,
thing.
I don't, when you talk about traffic, I don't agree with you. I've been in this town practically all my life, and downtown has changed consistently. The roads are much wider. The central, whatever you want to call it, the land piece that divided the street
median.
and
Yeah.
into two, that's gone. In other words, you can widen the streets. You can make them one way or two ways. You can do many things about traffic, but you have to do them early.
Before you impose these kinds
Yes.
of zoning restrictions.
Well, that's what. So maybe you make the streets narrower. Like my fear is we'll make Route 62 and Route 35 2 lanes in each way to make them look like 114. So people going from 95 to Beverly or Salem can just breeze right through at the detriment to the people
Well, the
that live here.
Danvers community is going to be punished by that.
Yeah, we don't want that. We want to make it like difficult. We want to narrow the streets. We want to throttle the traffic. If you're in traffic and you're complaining about it, well, you're part of the problem. So
Well,
it's kind of that simple.
just to complete the discussion on traffic and parking, basically, is we conducted a forum for concerned citizens at the library. That went very well. There was a good group of people that showed up. They had some questions. But the thing that they were sold on is that because we have had traffic studies done in this town, and there are 2 or 3, I think, that have been done over the years. Those studies that's all they are, is studies. Nothing has been implemented to prevent the traffic from building up. I mean, you can't get onto 62 without going through 2 sets of signal lights before you cross the intersection anywhere in town now.
Yeah, but you know, the big thing about those studies is, what do they recommend? They don't recommend anything, because the studies were set up originally just to study the amount of traffic, not to solve any problems.
You're absolutely right, and I think we need to end the traffic studies. We need to get into real life here, and the thing is, I just hope that this zoning, it's passed, it's gone.
Yeah, but
It's in place.
it's a live document. We can always go back and tweak
yeah.
it.
The last time it was addressed was in 1987.
I know, but we have the power to go back and revisit that even next year. So
You find the power. This is not
Well,
as easy as
if the residents
everybody
want
says.
something bad enough, then the town meeting will respond. So you
Just-
can't just throw up your hands and say that that's
Nobody's
that's-
throwing up their hands, but I think what we need to do is wait for the results of what happens. John has a couple of clips that we may run right now in regards to the
Okay.
development in downtown.
I've only got one, but okay.
Okay, but let's take a look at it. Here
This
we
is
go.
44 Maple Street. This is, at the present time, the old building has been torn down. This is what's going to go up. And you notice this is 3 stories high to start with.
Right.
The new zoning, that's what you're talking about, 3 stories high. You're going to be building mountains. You're going to be traveling in between a mountain on the left and a mountain on the right. But anyway, this looks actually more like a house than it does a business. It's going to be quite the outlook. Here it gives you an idea of what you have
What
or
you had.
That's been torn down. It's gone.
So that new building's 45 feet high with that mansard roof.
Right. And that's the limit of what the
That's what the
There's
zoning.
a broad
new
view.
zoning.
Give you an idea of what's on it. But you can see, as I say, it's going to be 3 stories high, and that's what the future is going to be for downtown, 3 stories high. There's another angle. This is on, what's this, Elm Street. And this is the front, they're redoing the front of the building. This gives you an idea where it is. And again, you notice how a lot of the buildings are 2 stories high. So when you look down, you can see the 3-story high buildings. And what the difference is going to make when they do, if they do, all of the new construction.
Well, John, I think if you really dig into this zoning proposal,
It's not a proposal. It's
well,
done.
the fact, the zoning facts,
This
is
gives
that
you a good view of downtown.
right?
1 or 2 stories on
Yeah,
the
but look at
average.
them. It's just bland buildings from the 60s.
This is ideal baby shoot.
Yes. That's again
That's
3 stories.
that's 1990s, no, 2000s.
But you notice
Better than
if
what was
this
there,
view
that's for sure.
breaks over, what's right next to it? A single-family home.
Yep.
And this is what downtown is surrounded by. And this is what's going to happen when you build all of the buildings that they're hoping for. You're going to get all the parking, and where are they going to park? They're going to park down in the residential area.
Right.
Over on Franklin Street.
Oh no, they will. All the way to 60,
Yeah.
62.
And you can see
But you
that
need to have some.
on the other side
parking
of the
on site.
street, there's residentials.
Right. See, the thing is,
That's Lee's
hot what?
hot water. And that's somewhere in the process.
Well, the demolition delay has expired.
And that's, at the present time, 2 stories.
And there's the Ideal Baby Shoe again. That's
Yes.
the front entrance here. So those are projects that are in process right now, and they were done without this particular
Yeah.
zoning
Yeah,
in
yeah.
place.
ZBA.
It was done with the ZBA, and the ZBA
Variances.
has enough knowledge and control over these buildings to make them comply with the surrounding areas.
Yeah, but the ZBA overrides what the town meeting has approved in the existing zoning, like Table 2, in terms of density.
Well, the
ZBA
thing-
can step in and just override what the will of the town voters were,
Because
agreed on.
they are representatives of the elected officials of the town.
Yeah, but the ZBA is a quasi-judicial. You can't fight them. They make a decision, and that's it.
Everybody fights them. You know that. They
Well,
go to
you
court
can't-
very often.
Well, if you don't have standing, then you're not going to have success. So.
Well, one thing I'd like to say about that clip that we just saw was, it's obvious that there is business going on, new business being developed down there. So there is some sort of process there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens now with the rezoning.
So right now, what I like to do is do a brief introduction to our election process in town before we get into the Danvers taxpayers and the tax situation. Right now, we are in the process of offering papers for signatures, and you have to qualify by having, is it 50 or 100 signatures for selectmen?
It's 50 signatures for selectmen and 10 for town meeting.
Town meeting members, right.
Yep.
And also, we have the candidacy of town moderator. I signed the papers for Pat.
Library trustees.
Library trustees, and I think there's housing is another one.
5-year term for affordable housing trust.
Right. So that is a process that's ongoing right now. The papers were made available February 1 or February 3rd. And they're to be filed by
March 24th.
24th. And that means during this time, if people are interested in running for office, there's going to be an open selectman seat. There are going to be contested school committee seats. There's going to be contested town meeting member seats. And town meeting member, you have to be serious about using that as a place where you can express your views and you're representing the people in your neighborhood. Housing, Danvers Housing is going to be on there, the library trustees. So there are opportunities for everyone to go and participate in town government. I always say that people are afraid to stand up and be counted, but this is the time when you need to stand up and be counted.
And you can actually make a difference.
You
I
may or you may not, but at least
No,
you've
you
attempted
can.
it.
You're part of when you're engaged in the process. You're definitely making a
There you go.
difference.
So that's an opportunity for anybody to come and be elected to a position and function in the town.
Yeah, you give
It's
back.
quite different today than it was when I was involved.
Okay.
My wife and I were town meeting members for many years. She was on the planning board. I was a FinCom member. But two things. I realize today people really, well, an awful lot of families, we have both the husband and the wife are working. and that makes it difficult time-wise. We went through this situation. It was rather interesting, and I've got to admit, I think my wife made a reputation for us on the planning board, and she did a
was
lot.
feisty.
Well, but things got accomplished.
That's right.
But the things that I tell people is you got to be realistic. Well, being on the town meeting and get things accomplished. To be quite blunt, you couldn't go up and say, hey, do this, and it gets done.
Right.
Basically, you had to go out and convince other town meeting members that what you were looking for was good. But the second part of that was you also had to get enough of the town meeting members that, hey, I'll vote for what you want, you vote for what I want. Therefore, you got something accomplished. You just had to make sure that what you were voting for, that they were pushing, was good. But that's politics, and that's the way things are done. But if you're eligible and you're here in town, run for office. It's amazing what you can get done.
Yeah, meet a lot of great people,
Yeah.
That's right.
a lot of great people involved.
All right. So now we get to the big spenders in town, and that's the Board of Selectmen. And what we want to do is we want to talk about a little bit about what is coming up in front of us. We have the annual town meeting, which will include warrant articles for special projects, and we have the budget, which really is the point of setting the tax rate for next year. Basically, in December, this budget is going to dictate how much taxes we have to collect.
Yep. This is the meal.
Forget about the meal. $86 million last year was collected in real estate taxes. And that $86 million was spent in 15 minutes at town meeting in May. However, that $86 million represents 4 major functions: benefits, retirement, schools, and what's the last one?
Just the administrative.
The town government.
Town government.
Yeah.
Right. So $86 million is already spent because none of these budgets ever revert back to last year's budget. They are always increased because if you look at the tax rates and the tax collection, every year we are at least 2.5+% increase in our tax
Well, as
collection.
I keep saying and reminding everybody, for the past 12 years, Danvers' tax rate has gone up. Now, we may be in the middle as far as half of the towns around us are higher and half of the towns are lower. But the fact is, 12 years, you keep paying more.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that my biggest issue is that every year we are assured that the budget is balanced and all that. But it's balanced on the backs of the taxpayers, because what they do is they inflate the budget to reflect how much taxes they can collect. And they are, right now, the town is collecting maximum amount of allowable tax collections, because there's nothing left in the budget that's preserved for future use. Levy capacity is, I think, within $30,000.
Yeah.
So our capacity to tax is getting close to the point where We're no longer going to be able to afford to live in this town.
Well, we're maxed out on our credit card, so we can't, if we have any emergency projects, we may not be able to fund
Well,
them.
wait a minute now. Listen, every year there's a, excuse me, a free cash amount that's left over from last year's budget because that budget was inflated to the point where they could collect maximum amount of taxes. And last year it was like $6 million. During the budget process and during the annual town meeting, that's $6 million. Almost all of it is spent on pet projects that the town hall wants to do.
It's spread out because we have these unfunded liabilities. You mentioned retirement
Yeah.
and healthcare and the OPEB. Those are unfunded and will not be fully funded until like 2040, maybe.
The problem is that none of those accounts are ever cut back. They're always fully funded for that particular year because there's a schedule that they have to go by. The benefits are never reduced or cut back. $86 million last year went directly to those 4 line items. And those are not even discussed.
Yeah, but those are contractually obligated.
Contractually is management's responsibility
that's
to
another.
reduce
That's
that.
that's an
Management
argument.
doesn't
That's
do
a
their
legitimate
job.
argument. Yeah.
That's right.
I'll
So,
say, let me throw this in
Go
as
for it.
usual. The overall town, as far as I'm concerned, is very well run. But it's well run because we're spending the amount of money we're spending. The retirement fund is where it is because we're paying the employees how much money we're paying them. And because we're paying them that amount, that's the
The
percentage
liability, right.
of retirement. And we have to put that forward. And we have the prime example of the electric light department running a business, and they're making particularly large profits every year. And they say, oh, we're holding this for emergency.
right.
Well, fine, but 16 or 17 million dollars? Come on.
Well, listen to this. Now, this is in addition to the maximum tax that have been levied against us for real estate. We have incurred in 2019 a 15% water rate increase. We have incurred a 11 to 20% electric rate increase. We have funded $25 million worth of electric residential revenues to projects that do not belong to the electric company. They are intersections, they are retirement funds. No wonder we have a AAA qualified bond rating, because we have been spending the money that has been put away in the electric department's budget, which are really profits that should have been returned to the electric company users. We are paying our bills every single month.
Well, that's the point. The rate we pay for the electric that we use is obviously overrated. They have large surpluses every year. So they're making more money than they're spending to run the department.
Which is great, which is good thing that's happening. However, what they're doing is they have right now, as a matter of fact, of January of this month, they have over $20 million in cash sitting in the electric company, but they're also increasing our rates by 11 to 12%. So I mean, you know, where is the end of this? And they do it with a smile. There's no response in regards to asking the question, why isn't any of this being returned to the residents? The DPU is currently investigating that particular expenditure of $25 million. And their town hall is very upset about that because somebody questioned them. So I mean, it's something else.
So this money that's squirreled away, that should be used to just lower the rates, or it sounded like you wanted the money returned to the ratepayer.
Lower the rates.
Yeah.
That's one way of doing it. It's like a refund or a dividend payment, and maybe forgive a month's bill.
So there's no risk involved with that down the road where we might need that money? And
No, if you're running the electric company, that would be a risk. But what concessions are they giving to the residents who are paying these bills?
Well, that's the point. If year after year after year you're making millions of dollars in profit, that's telling you that you're charging the customers.
Well, the next thing that the electric company wants to do is take that $20 million that's sitting now. They just spent another $4.1 million to the retirement fund. I mean, that's supposedly overfunded now. And what they want to do is they want to allocate that $20 million into different pockets so nobody will touch it. So the town, the electric company is well run. I'll give them that. But the thing is, let's be reasonable. Let's take care of the ratepayers. And the thing is, what are we going to do? The thing is, I'm going to continue watching this.
So you still go to the meetings?
I still go to the meetings, and they're being televised.
I see it says here that the electric is paying for rail trail development and maintenance.
Of
So
course
that's not accurate.
Oh, yes,
you know
it
what?
is.
They do vegetation management.
Oh,
so
come
yeah,
on.
it's under
so the power lines don't get knocked down. in the
Yeah,
storm.
I know.
You ever go out there and see what they do?
I do.
Where they do it?
Yes. They do it along the right of way that the electric department maintains.
Yeah, the right
Just
of
happens
way.
to be the
Instead
rail
of
trail.
being 50 feet, it's 100 feet. Don't give me the
Well, that's-
garbage.
That's not for the rail trail. That's for the.
That's for the rail trail.
All right, well, I don't wanna
It
get
has
into it,
been
but-
over the years. John and I have been involved in the rail trail
All
back
right,
in the 1990s.
I'll make some clips.
And we'll take a look at that. But the thing is, it's a great thing that people wanted.
Well, the maintenance.
But admit to the fact that it is not privately funded. It is publicly funded, and the selectmen back in 15 years ago basically gave that away, and now we're getting to pay for it through a hidden tax, basically through the electric division revenue stream.
Just the surface isn't being maintained by electric. You're talking about the vegetation management. I don't want to spend too much more time on it.
I
but
don't
we could-
either,
We
but
could dedicate a whole show to it.
That's right. So maybe that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Well,
I
why
get
don't
all
you?
my rail trail buddies to
There
show
you
up.
go. Let's bring them on. Let's bring them on. John has this is a letter that I've been writing for many months now, and I'm going to present it to the papers and let the residents take a look at what's really going on. John has a very interesting story that we should really get into.
Did you get a good view of this? This is what's coming up. And the Massachusetts legislation, there is a bill proposed and being considered to make you vote.
Mandatory.
Mandatory. If you're registered, you have to vote. If you don't, you have to pay a fine. Now, can you imagine this? What? 2/3 of Danvers voters don't vote?
90% don't vote
Well, that's
on
some
the town
yeah,
elections.
90%. And that means that they'd all get fined. It's just unbelievable. A state representative, Dylan Fernandez, has introduced a bill to force Bay State citizens to vote in the November general elections, whether they want to or not. If they don't vote, if the Massachusetts residents who fails to vote will be punished with a tax surcharge.
Well, there's your grab for money again. That's exactly what the legislature is doing, the same thing that the town hall is doing.
Well, they get away with it.
And they get away with it because people are lackadaisical and they sit back and let things happen.
Maybe the voters could vote against that.
Maybe.
But if they don't show up, then
No, but the legislators are already doing it
Yeah.
because they've been elected. The problem is that people do not get involved and they do not hear about these things until it's too late. We did the same story. We did a story a few months back in regard to community news. And community news in this town has basically dwindled to one reporter and maybe a monthly insert into your mail about community news. It's a great thing, but the thing is that the community news used to be available on a daily basis in the Salem Evening News. There was a section for Danvers, there was a section for Peabody, there was a big section for Salem. We understand that. But now we don't even have any of that except for what's being planted by Town Hall. And Town Hall used the newspapers to promote the current zoning that was just passed, which is okay. Ethan Foreman has been very good about reporting, but the thing is, he can't be everywhere. And this is the reason why we're trying to promote this program as being Danvers by Danvers residents.
Well, I think, having said that, I think I'd like to reemphasize what I said before. Any organization or any individual out there who wants to get their opinion or their point of view or information across, there are different ways you can do it, but one of the simplest ways to do it is to contact DCAT and contact us and talk to us. Maybe we can put something together. But do it. Get involved.
Well, one of the things that we have in our program, and I'm going to, we're running into a time frame, questions for our viewers. What are the topics you want this team to discuss in more detail? Topics of special interest. That's exactly where you're going. The next show is going to be on February 27th, and that'll be a Thursday again. We're going back to the Thursday programming. We had a conflict this time, but on the 27th, we'll go back on Thursdays at 5 p.m. And on March 12th, again, that's a Thursday, we'll talk about elections and the budget of town issues. What I like to end this thing with is, John, you have final comments or final questions. Do you want to go ahead and start that?
Well, as far as the show is concerned, when are we going to go back to telephone?
Well, that's the thing. Okay, that's my error of omissions right now. We are planning on starting the phone calls again. A telephone number is 978-777-2720. at the February 27th Thursday evening show. We will attempt to do that again. We tried it before, and we need to refine that a little bit more. However, don't have to wait to make the phone call. Contact us directly. I've had phone calls from people, and my number is in the book. It's, my number is 617-901-9432. I'm available. You have your phone in the telephone book.
978-774-3852.
And, Matthew?
Yeah, my number's on the website, the town website, so there's a list of town meeting members. I think only half of them are provided a phone number and an email address, but it's a good way. I was contacted last week by several constituents here in Precinct 1, and so that's a good way to kind of identify who your representatives are, and you can actually get in touch with them, give them a hard time.
Give them a hard time?
Well,
you don't want to do that.
Share your thoughts with them.
One of the things that I would suggest, and the issues that I see, is that town meeting member list is posted in the Town of Danvers annual town report. It does not have the telephone numbers in there, but it's available on the internet site. Every town meeting member, please put your name in. Your name is there. Put your telephone number and your email address, because that is the best way to get contacted. And if you don't want to put that in, then why are you a town meeting member?
It doesn't make any sense being a town meeting member and not
being available,
having contact with the people out there. How are they going to get a hold of you?
Well, there's the quandary.
And it's your local residents in your neighborhood.
Yeah, it's probably somebody that lives next door to you, maybe. Who knows?
So,
and I just wanted to mention one other thing. So last week, prior to the zoning, people were saying they didn't have the information or they didn't know what was happening. If you go on the town website under events, there's a calendar there that has upcoming meetings for all the different boards and commissions and et cetera. And a couple of days before the actual meeting, there's an agenda there. You can just click on a PDF file. Kind of gives you the overview of what's going to happen. And also there's other categories that have in-depth information. We talked about the hay barn with the PowerPoint presentation. So I know that the town's website sometimes can be a little kind of cluesy trying to find your way around. But if you're not able to find the information you look at, then just call them.
Well, the thing is, and I'll be the old geezer here, a lot of people do not have access or the ability to find some of the items that you're talking about on the internet site.
That's fine.
At one time, at the time when these meetings were not being televised, people attended them in person and got involved. Now, some of the information that's on the internet site by the town is so out of date that we're going back into 2016 in some cases, I've noticed.
Yeah.
And the problem is that they have promised to bring that up to date. Never has happened.
It's definitely a work in progress.
So good night, Danvers, and we'll see you on the 27th of February.
Good night.